The Earth that once teemed with life now lay in ruins, its once pristine landscapes marred by the scars of war. The shattered remnants of cities rise like tombstones against a broken sky, the echoes of humanity's past reverberating through. The empty streets. Earth's ecosystems struggle to heal, a fragile battle against the destructive forces of war. Most of humanity's technological prowess is lost or buried under centuries of neglect, and the once great civilization is now reduced to scattered colonies across distant stars. These survivors cling to life, their existence a fragile thread. In a galaxy that has long since forgotten the power of Earth, but deep within the rubble, something stirs. Amid the ruins, hope remains in the hearts of those who still believe in the legacy of their ancestors. For now, the fight for survival continues. Captain Sarah Mendez, a battle-hardened leader in her late 30s, stands at the helm of humanity's last remaining fleet, carrying the burden of the human race's future. Her sharp, tactical mind has guided the last survivors through countless battles, but the weight of Earth's destruction lingers heavy on her shoulders. The galaxy sees humanity as insignificant, an afterthought in the grand scheme of the cosmos, but Mendez knows better. She's seen firsthand the spark of resilience that burns in the hearts of the survivors, and she knows that the future of Earth rests on her leadership. Her mission is clear: rebuild humanity's influence no matter the cost. Yet, with limited resources and even fewer allies, Mendez's resolve is tested every day. Dreams of rebuilding Earth's former glory constantly clash with the harsh reality that survival comes first. As she stares into the void of space, the future seems as distant as the stars themselves. Dr. Isaac Renner, the last of humanity's brilliant minds, spends his days hunched over fragments of ancient technology, driven by a singular vision: to unlock the secrets that could restore Earth to its former strength. A scientist of unparalleled genius, Renner believes that reclaiming humanity's lost knowledge is the key to survival. His lab is a maze of broken machinery and half-finished inventions, remnants of a golden age that now feels more like a dream than reality. Every day he deciphers codes and rewires circuits, convinced that Earth's salvation lies within the ruins of its past. Yet his work is not without its friction. Captain Mendez, practical and battle-worn, often clashes with Renner's idealistic pursuit of lost technology. She's focused on immediate survival, while Renner insists that the key to humanity's future lies in resurrecting the old ways. Their differing visions create a constant tension, each pushing the other to reconsider their approach, but neither willing to back down. In a galaxy where the future is uncertain, their partnership is the only thing keeping the last hope of Earth alive. Admiral Krylos, a high-ranking officer in the Sharin Dominion, views humanity as little more than an outdated relic of a forgotten past. The Dominion, a vast and ruthless empire, has expanded unchecked, its fleet stretching across the galaxy like an iron fist. To Krylos, Earth's destruction was a foregone conclusion, just another insignificant species wiped from the stars. But when rumors surface that humanity still survives, Krylos' world is turned upside down. Skeptical at first, he begins to investigate, his curiosity growing as whispers of humanity's resilience refuse to die. Cold, calculating, and proud, Krylos' faith in his own superiority is shaken as he faces the growing possibility that the humans may not be as weak as he thought. As the Dominion tightens its grip on the galaxy, Krylos must decide whether humanity is merely a nuisance to be crushed or a legitimate threat to be reckoned with. The Sharin Dominion's war machine is a looming presence in the galaxy, its ever-expanding reach threatening to crush all that stands in its way. For centuries, the Dominion has waged war, absorbing civilizations and conquering worlds. Their technology is unmatched, their numbers overwhelming. yet they remain unaware of humanity's survival. The last remnants of Earth, scattered and weak, are nothing more than a myth in the eyes of the Dominion. But as the remnants of Earth begin to rebuild, the Sharin's ignorance will soon be shattered. The quiet tension of impending war grows ever stronger as the Sharin fleet readies for a final strike on the Earth's solar system. Their intelligence suggests that humanity was wiped out centuries ago, but they will soon learn that humanity's will to survive is stronger than they ever imagined. The galaxy holds its breath as the Sharin prepare to face a force they thought extinct. Deep within the remains of Earth's once mighty military infrastructure, Captain Mendez and her small team of survivors begin the painstaking work of rebuilding humanity's fleet. With scavenged technology and the help of brilliant minds like Dr. Renner, the first ships begin to take shape. Though their numbers are small and their ships are far from the advanced vessels of old, the spirit of humanity remains unbroken. Every bolt tightened, every circuit reconnected is a testament to their unyielding will. The goal is simple: prove that humanity is not extinct, that they are still a force to be reckoned with. When the Sharin fleet's movements are detected, Mendez knows that the time to strike is now. The battle ahead will be humanity's greatest test, one that will decide if they survive or fall once and for all. But for now, the survivors prepare, knowing that the fight ahead will require every ounce of ingenuity and determination they possess. As the Sharin fleet draws closer to Earth's solar system, the atmosphere among the human survivors grows tense. The time for rebuilding is over. The time for action has arrived. The fleet that Captain Mendez commands is vastly outnumbered, and the Sharin fleet's advanced technology seems insurmountable. Yet Mendez knows that humanity's greatest weapon is not in its ships or its weapons, but in its ability to adapt and outthink its enemies. The impending battle will test everything the survivors have fought for. It will test their will to survive, their creativity, and their belief in their place among the stars. The Sharin, confident in their superiority, will soon face the consequences of underestimating humanity. The fate of Earth hangs in the balance, but one thing is certain: humanity is ready to fight. Dr. Isaac Renner stood in the dimly lit room of Earth's last surviving research station, a faint hum of ancient equipment surrounding him. His hands shook as he brushed dust from an old communications device, its metallic surface covered in years of neglect. As the last of humanity's brilliant minds, Renner's work had always been about the future, about reviving what had been lost. Today, he had stumbled upon something far more significant, a beacon from Earth's forgotten past. His fingers hovered over the interface as the device sparked to life, revealing coordinates and encrypted data. A fleet, hidden away for centuries, lay dormant in the far reaches of space, humanity's last hope. Renner's breath caught in his throat as the reality set in. This was it, the secret Armada, the final weapon that could defend Earth and reclaim its lost power. The galaxy, unaware of this hidden force, would soon learn that humanity's resilience had not been extinguished. But as the device blinked, with more encrypted messages, Renner knew that awakening this fleet would be a gamble. His mind raced with possibilities, each one more dangerous than the last. He had found the key, but what would humanity do with it? Captain Sarah Mendez stood at the helm of humanity's last fleet, the weight of her crew's hopes resting on her shoulders. Her face, hardened by years of war and loss, softened as Renner's message came through. His words were simple but life-altering. The fleet had been found. The dormant ships, scattered and forgotten, could be the turning point in humanity's struggle for survival. She understood the implications immediately. Earth was vulnerable, its defenses non-existent. This fleet was their only chance to defend their home against the growing threat of the Sharin Dominion. But awakening this fleet wasn't just about activating ships. It was about reviving humanity's last remnants of military power, about throwing their fate into a war they couldn't afford to lose. Mendez knew that a single mistake could lead to their extinction, but she also knew there was no turning back. She ordered the revival, a decision that would lead them into the heart of the storm. The fleet, frozen in time, slowly powered up, each ship a relic of a past long gone. The crew, too, was awakening, unprepared but resolute. As the ships hummed back to life, Mendez stood firm, her resolve harder than steel. Earth's survival rested in their hands, and the risk was greater than ever. But for Mendez, the choice was clear: fight or die. The fleet's journey to Earth was one of quiet tension. Mendez paced the command deck, the silence of space pressing down on her. Each step was calculated, but inside, her mind was a whirlwind. The fleet was small, its ships outdated, but it was all they had. The factions aboard were divided, their thoughts and fears clashing at every turn. Some wanted to avoid conflict with the Sharan Dominion, hoping for a diplomatic solution that might save Earth without further bloodshed. Others, including Mendez, believed that humanity's strength could only be proven through force. Her vision of the future had always been about strength, about fighting for a place among the stars. The debate raged on. Some questioned Mendez's decision to activate the fleet, while others quietly whispered that the fight ahead might be more than they could handle. As the fleet neared Earth's solar system, the internal tension mirrored the growing external threat. The stakes had never been higher. Mendez knew that if they didn't act soon, Earth would be obliterated. But could she unite the factions within the fleet in time for the confrontation ahead? Meanwhile, the Sharan Dominion pressed forward, unaware of the fleet's revival. Their ships, massive and relentless, cut through space with the cold certainty of their conquest. For them, humanity was a myth, a ghost of a civilization long since extinguished. But even as the Dominion's fleet advanced, their confidence began to waver. They had underestimated Earth's resilience, and soon they would learn that humanity was not finished. Their arrogance would soon become their greatest mistake. Captain Kala, leading the Sharan fleet, dismissed rumors of Earth's survival. He was a man of logic, and logic told him that humanity had been eradicated in the wars of old. But his curiosity began to grow. What if the humans had returned? What if they were not as weak as he thought? Kala's pride made him reluctant to admit that the human spirit might still be alive, but he could not ignore the signs. As the fleet drew closer to Earth, his decision to ignore humanity's survival would become a pivotal moment in the galaxy's history. The Sharan Dominion was on the brink of delivering a final blow to Earth. The fleet, vast and terrifying, surged forward, its weapons primed for destruction. The Dominion's confidence was their greatest strength, but it was also their weakness. They believed Earth was nothing more than a myth, and their final assault was calculated. The fleet's advanced technology and numbers made them almost unstoppable. But as the Dominion neared Earth, a ripple of fear spread across the scattered colonies. The survivors knew what was coming, and they knew they had only one chance to make a stand. Humanity's Armada, resurrected from the ashes of its past, was ready. The Dominion would soon find out just how wrong they were to dismiss the human race. Mendez stood at the helm, watching the vast enemy fleet on the sensors. Her crew was ready. The time for hiding was over. Earth would rise or fall with this final battle. As Earth's fleet approached the solar system, the galaxy began to take notice. The news of humanity's return spread like wildfire. The once dismissed human race was now a powerful force, reasserting its place in the universe. Galaxies that had long since forgotten Earth's existence now turned their eyes toward the reawakened fleet. Some factions saw this as a threat, an anomaly that could disrupt the established order. Others, more intrigued, wondered what this new player in the galactic game would bring. The return of humanity was both a cause for celebration and a source of dread. The Sharin Dominion, believing themselves invincible, were blindsided by the news. The realization that humanity was not dead, that they were not weak, shook the foundations of their empire. As Mendez prepared for battle, she knew that the galaxy would never view Earth the same way again. They were no longer a forgotten species. They were a force to be reckoned with. The stage was set for the final confrontation. The Sharin Dominion, believing their victory over humanity would be swift, launched their assault. The fleet, massive and armed to the teeth, surged toward Earth's last bastion. The Dominion's forces, confident in their power, expected to crush any remaining resistance. But as the first wave of Sharin ships neared the human fleet, they were met with something they had not anticipated: human ingenuity. The once dormant fleet, now awake and filled with the resolve of its people, fought back with everything it had. Captain Mendez led the charge, her every decision filled with the weight of humanity's future. The battle was fierce, a test of every human instinct, every ounce of creativity and strength. The Dominion, for all their might, could not anticipate the tenacity of the human spirit. The fight for Earth had only just begun. The silence of deep space was shattered by the roar of humanity's fleet as it emerged from the shadow of the asteroid belt. Captain Mendez stood at the helm of the flagship, her fingers lightly gripping the command console. The stars outside flickered in the cold emptiness, their distant glow reminding her of the fragile existence they fought to protect. The Sharin Dominion loomed large in their minds, a nearly invincible force that had wiped out most of Earth's civilization. Yet here they were, pushing back. Small victories, guerrilla strikes. Mendez led her fleet with calculated precision. Each engagement was a testament to humanity's creativity and adaptability. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were never outsmarted. The Sharin, with all their superior technology, were not prepared for the unpredictability of human tactics. Captain Mendez smiled grimly as a report came in. Another supply line had been disrupted. Another tactical strike had crippled a Sharin outpost. These victories were small, but they sent a clear message: humanity could strike back. The Sharin were not as invulnerable as they thought. These battles, though perilous, were enough to stir the embers of hope in her people. Mendez's success didn't come without sacrifice. The crew of the fleet pushed themselves beyond their limits. They faced battles on multiple fronts, never knowing where the next strike would come from. But it didn't matter. As each day passed, they were proving something to themselves and to the galaxy. They weren't just survivors, they were contenders. As the fleet prepared for another ambush, Mendez couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something larger than a mere tactical victory. They were showing the universe that human ingenuity was something to be reckoned with. But even as the reports from the front lines came in, a nagging thought lingered in her mind. Was it enough? The Sharin were still coming. They would adapt. They always did. Humanity couldn't afford to rest on its laurels. Admiral Krylos, watching from the command deck of the Sharin flagship, scoffed at the humans' audacity. To him, the victories meant little. The Sharin Dominion was vast, and the humans were just an insect, struggling against an inevitable fate. At least, that's what Krylos believed, until the reports started coming in. The humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. The Sharin had underestimated their resilience, and Krylos began to see it. He had dismissed them as insignificant, a dying race clinging to the remnants of a past civilization. But now he wasn't so sure. Krylos watched as another tactical strike from the humans crippled a fleet outpost. His pride stung, and his mind began to race. Were the humans really as weak as the Dominion had thought? Or had they learned to fight in a way that no one had anticipated? For the first time in his career, Krylos felt the stirrings of doubt. He needed answers, and he needed them quickly. A decision was made. He would contact Captain Mendez. The communication was brief but pointed. Mendez received the message in her quarters, her eyes narrowing as she read the encrypted data. It was from Kala, Admiral Kala. She almost dismissed it outright, her instincts screaming that it was a trap, but there was something in the message that made her pause. Kala was offering something that, if true, could change everything: information, insights into Sharon tactics. He called it an alliance. Mendez knew the risks. Trusting an alien, especially one from the enemy, could unravel everything. But desperation had a way of making strange bedfellows. She couldn't afford to ignore the possibility. The war was escalating. Humanity was winning battles, but the Sharin were learning too. The small victories were starting to feel less like triumphs and more like fleeting moments of luck. Kala's knowledge could be humanity's ticket to breaking the Sharin's stranglehold on the galaxy. She weighed the decision, then made a choice. "Set up a secure channel," she ordered. Weeks passed, and the uneasy alliance between Mendez and Kala took shape. There were moments of tension, sharp exchanges where neither side trusted the other completely, but the necessity of cooperation overrode their suspicions. Kala's intelligence proved invaluable, giving humanity a glimpse into the Sharins. Strategy. Mendez adapted their tactics, using Kala's insight to stay one step ahead. It was a fragile partnership, built on necessity, but it worked. For the first time in a long time, Mendez felt something akin to hope. With Kala's help, humanity could outmaneuver the Sharin. They were more than just survivors. They were becoming something formidable. But the Sharin were not blind. They were evolving, learning from their defeats. The predictable tactics that had once crushed enemies now became insufficient against the humans' creativity. The pressure mounted. Captain Mendez and her crew worked tirelessly to adapt to the Sharin's new strategies. They were losing the element of surprise. The Sharin fleet became more elusive, their movements erratic, their response times faster. Humanity's victories started to feel more hollow, their progress slower. Each battle became harder and the costs higher. Mendez turned to Dr. Renner's AI for help. The artificial intelligence, powered by the remnants of Earth's lost technology, had been invaluable in predicting Sharin movements, but it was becoming clear that the Sharin were now playing a different game. They had adapted. The humans were playing catch-up. It was no longer enough to predict their moves. They had to think beyond the conventional. The Sharin were getting better, faster, more deadly. Mendez was no longer just fighting for survival. She was fighting for humanity's future. Inside the fleet's command center, tensions were high. Despite the victories, despite the critical intelligence from Kalor, humanity's internal struggles were threatening to unravel everything. The question that had plagued them from the beginning, how to deal with the Sharin, was growing more complex. Some factions within humanity believed that continuing the fight was madness. A direct assault on the Sharin flagship, they argued, was a suicide mission. Diplomacy, they said, was the only way forward. But Mendez, ever the strategist, couldn't bring herself to entertain that notion. The Sharin had proven time and time again that they wouldn't stop until humanity was wiped out. Diplomacy at this stage was a fantasy. Mendez's unwavering conviction was beginning to divide the ranks. She was no longer just their leader. She was a symbol of hope for some and a source of anger for others. The fractures within humanity were growing, and with each day that passed, the task of holding her people together grew harder. She was running out of time, and so was humanity. The tension between diplomacy and direct action reached its peak as the Sharin fleet advanced. The AI's predictions were becoming increasingly difficult to trust as the Sharin adapted faster than ever. Humanity was on the cusp of something bigger than just a battle. It was a turning point. Captain Mendez knew that their next move would decide everything. The pressure was unbearable, but the outcome was clear. Humanity had to act quickly and decisively, or they would lose everything. Time was running out. Every victory, every surprise attack was harder to achieve. And with the Sharon's adaptive countermeasures, the war was shifting in ways Mendez couldn't control. This was no longer just a war of strength. It was a battle for humanity's soul. The air was thick with tension as Lara and her team approached the looming silhouette of the eclipse star. It was a massive alien vessel, the flagship of the Sharon. Dominion, a symbol of their ruthless conquest. The mission was simple in theory: infiltrate, plant the virus, and cripple the Sharon fleet. But the reality was anything but simple. As Lara surveyed the dimly lit hallways of the ship's interior, her mind raced through calculations, scenarios, and risks. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and surrounded by enemy forces. Their only advantage lay in the element of surprise and the intelligence provided by their AI. The AI, embedded in their systems, was their guiding light, calculating every step with cold precision. But every step forward felt like a gamble, each corner a potential trap. "Stay focused," Lara muttered to herself, her hand gripping the trigger of the plasma rifle. "We're not backing down now." The Eclipse star felt alive, its technology pulsing with an alien intelligence that seemed to be aware of every move they made. Every heartbeat echoed louder in her chest, every sound magnified as they ventured deeper into the heart of the enemy's domain. As they navigated the ship's labyrinthine corridors, the feeling of dread grew heavier. The ship was vast, its walls lined with advanced alien technology that hummed ominously. They encountered a few patrols along the way, quick, quiet firefights that left the air thick with the scent of ozone and burned metal. But it wasn't the patrols they were worried about. It was what lay ahead, the unknown traps, the twisted design of the ship that would test their every move. The AI guided them through the corridors, feeding them real-time information about the layout and enemy movements. It was a race against time, and every step they took felt like a step closer to death. Lara's team moved with precision, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Their resolve was ironclad, but the weight of the mission pressed down on them. Like a physical force, there was no room for mistakes. "We need to move faster," Lara whispered, her eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. They couldn't afford to be caught. They couldn't afford to fail. As they neared the heart of the Eclipse star, they encountered their most formidable challenge yet, the Sharon commander. He was a towering figure, his presence commanding the very air around him. His alien might and ruthless nature were apparent in every movement, every word. But what struck Lara most was his arrogance. He dismissed their intrusion with a cold, dismissive laugh, believing that humanity was too insignificant to pose a real threat. His overconfidence was palpable, and that was where Lara saw her opening. "Underestimate us," she thought, "and you'll regret it." The commander believed that the Sharon Dominion's strength was unparalleled, that no enemy could stand against their might. But that was his fatal flaw. Lara's mind worked swiftly, formulating a plan to use his overconfidence against him. "He doesn't see us as a real threat," she realized, and that would be his downfall. The battle between them would not be fought with brute force, but with wits. "Prepare for a fight," Lara said, her voice calm but determined. "But this time, we play it smart." The confrontation with the Sharon commander began as a tense standoff. Lara's team positioned themselves in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The commander, for all his arrogance, was not a fool. He knew something was off. His eyes scanned the room, suspicion creeping into his gaze, but it was too late. Lara, using the ship's own systems against him, initiated a chain of distractions. Security doors malfunctioned, alarms blared in the distance, and lights flickered unpredictably. The commander's confusion grew, and in that moment of vulnerability, Lara struck. The ship's control systems were vulnerable, and she hacked into the central network, locking the commander out of his own ship. The power of brute strength was no match for human ingenuity. Lara's fingers danced over the controls as the commander's confusion turned to rage. "You'll pay for this," he snarled. But his threats were empty. The tide of battle had turned, and this time it was humanity's cunning that would win the day. With the Sharin commander temporarily neutralized, Lara and her team moved swiftly, planting the virus in the central core. The virus was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, a program designed to cripple the Sharin fleet and shut down their systems. The mission was nearly complete, but as they turned to leave, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Sharin. Reinforcements were closing in, and escape seemed impossible. Lara's mind raced. The virus needed one final step, an activation that would trigger the self-destruction of the eclipsed star. But there was no time. The Sharin were coming fast. This is it, Lara thought, knowing that the fate of Earth rested on her actions. They could not fail. She initiated the final countdown, watching as the ship's systems began to collapse under the weight of the virus. "We've done it," she whispered to herself. But even as the countdown began, the enemy was closing in, and there was no way out. The galaxy, once indifferent to humanity's existence, could no longer ignore them. The Sharin fleet was destroyed, and with it, humanity had proven their strength. It was a victory that reverberated across the cosmos, shaking the very foundations of the intergalactic order. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of Earth, now saw them in a new light. The defeat of the Sharin was no small feat, and even the most powerful alien factions could not deny the brilliance of human strategy and determination. Earth was offered a seat at the table, a place among the stars that had once been denied. To them, this newfound recognition was a double-edged sword. The galaxy was a complex political web, and now humanity would have to navigate its challenges. They had earned their place, but it came with a price. The forces of the galaxy would no longer look at humanity with disdain. They would see them as a force to be reckoned with, but with this newfound recognition came a new struggle. Captain Mendez found herself facing the intricate web of galactic politics. Earth had earned its place, but maintaining that position would be no easy task. Every move, every decision was fraught with consequences. The galaxy was vast and filled with factions, some of whom viewed humanity's rise with suspicion, others with hostility. Earth's place in this new world depended on Mendez's ability to navigate the delicate balance of diplomacy and survival. She had been a military leader, but now she found herself thrust into a world of negotiations, alliances, and political intrigue. She was no longer just fighting for Earth's survival. She was fighting to ensure that humanity would thrive in this complex, dangerous new galaxy. The choices before her were monumental. One wrong move could change the course of history, and Mendez understood that the fate of her people rested on her shoulders. The weight of leadership had never felt heavier. As the rebuilding process began, the survivors of Earth remained undeterred. The scars of war were everywhere, on the landscape, on the people, and in the hearts of those who had fought to preserve humanity's future. Yet, despite the destruction, there was a sense of purpose in the air. Humanity had been tested, and they had emerged victorious, but now they faced the hardest challenge of all, rebuilding. Earth's fleet began to regroup, its numbers small but growing. New technologies, scavenged from the wreckage of the Sharin fleet and Earth's own reserves, were put to work, advancing society and healing old wounds. It was not a quick process, but the spirit of humanity refused to be broken. The future was uncertain, but there was a belief that they could not only survive, but thrive. The battle for survival was over. Now it was time to build a new world. And they would do it together, drawing strength from the sacrifices of the past and the unbreakable will to forge ahead. The journey was just beginning. Captain Mendez stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space beyond. The stars, once distant and unreachable, now seemed within her grasp. The war against the Charin was over, and humanity had emerged victorious, but she knew this was only the beginning. Earth's survival was no longer the primary concern. It was about what came next. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but humanity had proven its resilience. The stars that once held only fear now promised both danger and opportunity. The battles fought had shaped humanity, and Captain Mendez knew they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The uncertainty of the future was daunting, but one thing was clear: humanity was no longer a forgotten species, but a force that would make its mark on the universe. The legacy of Earth had just begun. With the Charin War behind them, humanity's place in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. No longer were they mere survivors, hidden in the shadows of powerful empires. The conflict had forged them into a force capable of standing among the stars. Earth's newfound strength had earned it a place at the table of galactic politics, but with that power came responsibility. The road ahead was filled with challenges, as alliances had to be formed, enemies had to be faced, and the intricacies of intergalactic diplomacy had to be navigated. Humanity's resilience, tested by war, would guide them through this uncharted path. The lessons learned from the Charin conflict would be crucial as they faced the complexities of the universe. Though peril lay ahead, the human spirit, forged in the fires of adversity, would lead them forward. From mere survival to the pursuit of influence, humanity's journey had evolved in ways that were unimaginable before the war. The Charin conflict had not only secured Earth's place in the galaxy, but it had reshaped humanity's very identity. The scars of war were still fresh, but the future now held a promise of something greater, of purpose and power. The challenges ahead were unknown, but they were no longer insurmountable. Humanity had proven its worth, and now it would rise to meet the galaxy's expectations. No longer would they simply endure. They would thrive, pushing forward as a contender, carving a path for themselves among the stars. The Charin conflict had served as a catalyst for a fundamental shift in humanity's standing in the galaxy. It had not only been a battle for survival, but a transformative moment in their history. From the ashes of war, Earth had emerged stronger, unified, and more determined than ever to secure its place in the universe. The lessons learned from the conflict had shaped humanity into something formidable, something that could no longer be underestimated. The Charin may have been defeated, but their defeat had triggered a shift that would echo across the galaxy for eons to come. Earth's identity had been forged in the fires of war, and the legacy of this struggle would resonate for generations, inspiring all those who would come after. As humanity's survivors now stood united, they gazed out into the galaxy with newfound purpose. The legacy of the past, the sacrifice, the ingenuity, and the unwavering resolve had left a mark on their future that could never be erased. The challenges ahead were unknown, and the road would not be easy, but one thing was certain: humanity's resilience would not be shaken. Earth was no longer a place of survival alone. It had become a shining example of what could be achieved. When a species refuses to surrender, the human spirit, tempered by war and driven by an unbreakable will, would continue to rise, inspire, and forge its path across the stars. The universe would know that humanity had not only survived, they had come to conquer.